morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
So far, so good. It's one of those Mondays where
Yes.
nothing crazy coming up that I have personally, but nothing particularly interesting either.
Well, I'll tell you, for me, I'm excited. It's Monday. I have a class called How to Train Your Dragon, and that's my event tonight. I'm so excited. Had a lot of good positive feedback. I hope my team shows up for it. Otherwise, I have no clue what we're doing.
Now talk to me about what is the class about, considering I don't know how many of us have dragons.
Well, it's very interesting. I've noticed over the last couple of years in particular that more and more people are developing a connection to dragon energy. And, I'm a firm believer that what we connect to is also part of where we're at in our journey. Into dragon energy, you're coming from usually from two different points of view. You're either coming from a point of view where you felt like you've been oppressed, and, now it's time for you to fly and to get your life kind of soaring and making it better, and the strength is building, and the dragon is very, very strong energy. It's also one not to be reckoned with. I mean, we would never want to take that out of context. But, dragon is pretty fierce if it wants to be. So actually for that subset of people, it's helping them to get their life back together, helping them to find who they are. For the other set of people, and again, there's always minute sets. There's many branches to all trees. We recognize that there's a group where it's like they're coming into the power because they've been putting it off. And they know they have a connection, but they're always just kind of hiding behind the door. They're afraid that if they get too far invested in that energy, which is again strength, perseverance, moving forward, taking things as they are, in the sense of living that full-on experience. Scary thing. So some people in that group just are afraid that if they start this journey, they can't give their dragon up later. They can't go.
You said that's funny.
So it's kind of the equivalent of, like if you thought you had a sweet little bunny rabbit, a spirit animal, and you were good with that because, it would take a nap, you would take a nap, it would hide, you would hide, you'd nibble on something good to eat, and they would too. And then all of a sudden you've got a dragon, and now you're like, oh God, that's a scary thing. Is it gonna burn me up in flames, or are we flying to the other side of the world? What are we doing? So it's a different challenge, but it's great energy.
Well, with the dragon, we just left the dragon year. We just moved into the snake.
Yeah.
But, there seems to be a lot of, I'm about to go on a little bit of a nerd thing, but, on old maps, obviously in scripture, there's a lot of interesting references to dragons as being considered a real thing, right?
Yep.
And we see a lot of art depicting the removal of them as we know it. Now, who's to say that they didn't run off and go somewhere else to get away from our BS, right?
Well, you never know.
But do you ever sense the, if there was ever the spirit of a dragon or the sort of like we think about nature sprites, right? Or nature energies. And I would assume with dragons and some, more mystical, but arguably would have once been with us in the physical world. Do you ever think that those just sort of exist places, or not really?
That's a great question, because I do feel that for everything that we look at as mystical or, fairy tale-ish, I really feel that we have experienced them.
I do too.
We can't come and conjure up all these, amazing situations and creatures. Heck, for the longest time, people thought dinosaurs were mystical creatures. So we recognize that there's a strong possibility. Fire breathing, I don't know, maybe one had bad breath and it just rolled from nose, But we do know that there's probably something to be said about that culture. Yep, the dragon energy of its own.
Well, so the internet being what it is, I mean, they really might have made a huge mistake with us as far as just allowing us to have the recording that we have and the way to connect that we have. But there have been some interesting, compelling, and again, I'm done with it. The AI is crazy. I get that. But I would get a feeling sometimes people are capturing things in the air that closely, the only thing they seem to resemble would be that. So I'm fascinated to see sort of what winds up being real over time, because we really
And I love the way you said that. I'm taking a little bit of a switch to the right on this or left on this, however your direction you're facing. Artificial intelligence, I mean, it certainly has its place, and I'm not going to make a statement, an argument one way or the other, really. But it does present a problem on some levels because we are in a state of mind just generally over the last 10 years in particular, where we want to know what's going on. We're more curious. We're more engaged. We want to see the bigger pictures. We want to know that things exist. We want to be a part of it. And now all of a sudden we're looking at pictures that are so real. And then we find out that they're artificially intelligently drawn and created and manufactured. So, that kind of puts us in a curious situation about what do we believe is real and what's not real as we go further into this new experience. It could get very, very difficult.
But, I think too, the thing that we have on our side, I think maybe is there is an underlying vibration of truth.
Yes.
And that's the real detriment to the dark side. That's because the laws of reality, you can't be in the middle of a disguise and not bear the vibration of you being disguising. Well, now, you can just do it really well. But I wonder, as we get, I keep always referencing this, but I don't know why I love the Dune series, because it's this hugely futuristic series, but they don't allow the AIs. So it really becomes a celebration of what the human is capable of.
I love that. Yes.
I think we're just going to, the more the real truth as we see it is off, the more we will generate not only a value around real discernment, and those gifted with it. It's just going to force truth seers.
And I love that. That's the ideal way. I like that, to look at things from that perspective. Because if not, we've got a lot of different communities, creative communities, spiritual communities that will be drastically affected. Straight. How perfect it is to be able to write a song and, in the lyrics, the words, the beats, the whole thing. And then AI comes behind it 3 minutes later, comes up with another version of it. So, it's kind of tricky. But I've come to a conclusion, if it ticks me off too much, I'm just going to jump on my dragon and...
That's right, because you trained it.
That's right, because I've trained the darn thing. I'm telling it, listen, we may go up in the air for a while, but I do want to come back down to the ocean, because that's where my favorite place is.
Oh, you like the ocean. Okay.
I love it all. I say that tomorrow. I'll say I love the mountains. I love it all. Just get me out. I'm happy as a lark.
I had the wildest thought the other day, because I get so caught up sometimes where I'm like, man, there is a real death grip on control on this planet in some ways. But then I had this thought of, think about all of the areas that are considered not reachable. All the mountains, all the forests, I sit here thinking, oh, the world's under control. It's like, there are probably vast amounts of the world that this control system cannot touch.
Right.
And they're probably protecting the secrets of this earth. And they're probably the ones protecting the knowledge. And thank God that they exist. And maybe thank God I don't know about them, because that means they don't know about them.
That's right. Exactly. And that's the way it needs to be kept.
Because I felt like, it's not the way we think. Those protections just aren't allowed to be seen.
Right. They're not. And that's a good thing. Excuse me. Thank you. It's so funny because I have a window in my office, my home office, and it's up high, but I have something covering it. Every time I get on the computer, it's like, it just finds me. No matter where I'm in the screen, I'm going to have a golden glow somewhere in my body, because...
You really do. But it looks so pretty.
Well, thank you. But we know it's artificially, it's AI, just for the record, people.
Right. AI generated. That's a curious thing too about in that world, they have this thing called the Bene Gesserit, but it's all these women who have just studied micro, are you sweating? Is your eye dilating? All these things, right? But then, you and I and other people kind of like us, there's that attunement to the truth. So we're not really looking like, are they distressed in the faith? It's what is the energy saying? And that's a little bit less easy to prove, but I'm curious about this thought form for you. I remember one time you told me that you knew somebody who had been trained kind of through the government with remote viewing.
Yes, I still do. An A.
And do you feel like, is there not not concerning, but capitalistic applications to the remote? Because obviously there's military
Right.
applications. But, what keeps somebody who's gifted like us from not going into, like, imagine being a true sayer for like a CEO. So you sit in all the meetings and you're there to basically suss out whether someone, do you think spirit would not be happy with that? Because it's too,
Well, and that's a really good question, because we recognize when you're seated in power, you're going to have an advantage if you have inner knowledge. You're
Mhm.
going to be at an advantage. And sometimes that advantage is taken too far out of context.
Mm.
An example of that, let me give you from both sides of what I'm saying. What we do to help people. Are we giving you an unfair advantage because we're giving you an opportunity to look at something you may choose to correct or fix or change or monitor? Well, it's slight. It's not gonna rock anyone else's world but yours, typically.
Good point.
And so if you were to be seated in the Oval Office helping out those that are in positions of power, the key word is that power. If you're in those environments, that's about the equivalent of being on the stock market exchange floor. If I
Yeah.
tell you how to play your market, and people are either going to lose a lot of money or make a lot of money depending on what you're choosing on their behalf.
Yeah.
Lottery, the unfair advantage. We'd all be millionaires if intuitives were gifted on that level. So I've seen, and that's a wonderful question. That's a really good question. I've seen it blow up. I've seen it blow up for me. I had someone for a couple of years, in fact, that became close to a millionaire because they were always asking me for stock tips. And I told him, I said, this is not what I like to do.
Mhm.
And all I'm going to say to you is up or down, because I don't want to know what you're playing with.
Mhm.
It's your advantage. And so
Mhm.
and down, and I remember it very clearly because they lost, oh gosh, almost all of it. The last time they asked me for information, I said, this is running in the ground. This is going to be done. You know that, right? And whatever I give you might be what's going to do it.
Uh, and they couldn't hear it.
And they lost it all.
Oh man.
Not only did they over capitalize on it originally, but they put all their eggs in one basket,
Mhm.
and it tanked.
Mhm.
And they were angry at me. And I said to them, you should never have asked me in the first place.
Man. Uh,
So going back
yeah.
to the question, is there an unfair advantage? If I tell you XYZ country is going to do XYZ, then you're going to be prepared for some type of retaliation or connection. Is that what you're supposed to do? Are you supposed to have that knowledge? Or is that just based on strategy rather than intuition?
Well, in the case of somebody who is training, I mean, because there is a real understanding of like that consciousness. I mean, they've really,
Yes.
it seems arguable, geez, arguable that it's all sort of eventually weighed down later in the timeline. It's just going to all be science. How to manipulate our consciousness in and out of our body. I think they can do that. I think it's just vibrational manipulation, essentially. And the
Right.
soul has, certain ways that it can move. But with that said, everything that we do in the physical world ultimately is not that important because it's just, so you have somebody who is gifted in remote views and hacks the science of the consciousness and of vibration. So
Right.
like everything that you get done in that world, it's kind of almost like you're off on a side quest that doesn't do anything for growth. And so I question that sometimes where I'm like, yeah, we can go and fully immerse into all the metaphysical things that you can do with consciousness.
Right.
But the further away you are from living the human existence, the further away from the classroom you are.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was kind of like, you can't go sleep all the time so you can lucid dream. You're not really living. You can't, go remote view somewhere you're not because you'll never be present in where you are. It's just kind of, it's interesting.
It is very interesting. There's a lot of wonder in beauty and majesty and in being an intuitive and being able to take all of those skill sets and make them into something that, one would never really dream could be possible. But at the end of the day, the living experience, the human experience, the experience of the now is a very small subset of what we are here for.
Yeah. It
You
just
know,
sounds cool.
it's
It'd be cool to like,
girl, Amazingly cool.
Yeah. It seems like it's
Think about, and when I mentioned, when I said an A, it could be it could be give me a B too, or a C or a D, right?
right.
Because we would never name names, and I actually threw a curveball at y'all. But but what we recognize just feel this for a minute. Can you imagine being in that room? And all these intuitives are sitting down, and they all got the accolades. You're the best of the best, and we're here because we need to know, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden, woo, he goes up, we're feeling really good. But then they
Mhm.
leave the room as you're all sitting there basking in your egos. They go in the other room, they're going, yeah, how many people believe in these idiots? Oh, yeah, you, okay, let's balance the scale. Well, if it's good, it works, okay, we'll do it. And other people go, yeah, it's a waste of time. Why are we spending money? And the other ones are like, I don't know. I'm not saying a word.
Right.
Please.
Well, I wish I could point everybody towards, I don't know, I can't think of who the group is, but there is a group online and they're older gentlemen and they are very gifted.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
are. But it's such quintessential like worthlessness because and it's such a good look inside of what we do a little bit because
Absolutely.
every month after what they predicted comes true, they go and they're like, look at how right we were. But the funny thing is, it is the exact same lack of detail that we all endure in what we do if you do it well and so they'll be like, I see a big military event. I see a bridge. I see a lot of people scared. All these details that thus then are true, but not valuable to be preventative. Like, cause they even got the region correct, but it doesn't really matter because you're just somebody there saying, I feel all this strong energy around this region, potentially around a time. And everyone's gonna be like, well, good for you. Great feeling. And so
Yes.
it
And
isn't,
that's, I'm sorry, I didn't mean
no,
to
you're
interrupt. But and then we dig the trench a little deeper because then you've got a group of people saying an event, something bad. There's a group of people. It's going to be here. It's going to be there. But if they go, listen, we're going to prevent all that. We're canceling it. We're moving it to another day. We're going to change the indoor to outdoor. We're going to do something different to make sure it doesn't happen. Then the day comes and goes, and everyone we're going, see, I told you it wasn't true. See what they. So there's no recognition, no accolades. If you prevent
dang.
something,
Well,
it's when
yeah.
you see it and, oh, yeah, wasn't that horrible? And
Oh,
that's
yeah.
troublesome to me because I'm a firm believer if you've got a message and you can do anything about it. And I say to people all the time, if I got this weird message, you're going to have this as a premonition, you might hurt yourself. And you better be specific because they can't spend the
Mm,
rest of their life wondering about the right foot.
that's correct. Yeah.
So I say, listen, go with this for about 48 hours, 72 hours, and then you need to go back to not worrying about things. But if you can prevent it, then prevent it. And, 3 days later, no, I'm fine. I can't go in there and say, see, I told you, if you just think about it, because that's not the way it works. I basically talked myself out of accuracy.
Correct. But that's correct.
But
But I think
yeah,
I do notice though in situations where you do have responsibility towards
yes,
discussing that in a conversation, I'll notice that I almost get front loaded with details that are verifiable to them because it's almost like they know we're about to have to go into something that requires more trust. So let
yeah,
me front load. Why is your mom this way? And I'm accurate at all about how she is. And I don't know your mom. Then
right,
as we leap into this kind of faith driven thing,
right. You're
it's
going to take
not
it more
as much of
seriously.
a leap.
Yep, that makes perfect sense.
And that's not a
Absolutely.
conscious thing. I don't know if do you ever, do you ever get super conscious with it or you kind of just let them do it?
You know, and I'm chuckling because I'm thinking about some of the things I do when I'm channeling. On the side going, wow, this is neat. I like this. And sometimes I'm listening to every single word that I'm hearing coming through my vocal cords. You know, I'm both.
Mhm.
I'm truly both. There are things that I say that sometimes when they come out as some type of premonition or warning, that I'm like, wow, you better give me something more than that. And in order to
Interesting.
substantiate. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, okay, they're showing me your 3 steps. There's 3 steps going up to your front door. One's got a little side of the second step. And this is what I see. This is going to be morning time. And so they're giving data. They're giving feedback. They're giving more substance.
I wish that people knew too that that is literally, and it makes us look inaccurate, but we can't do it all at the same time. So I noticed like they'll give me this kind of zoomed out detail. And
Yes.
if that's not enough, because the person's looking at you blank or they don't, then I can go back and say, I'm going to need us to zoom in
Right.
to this.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
and sometimes that works out because then you get the details and it's obvious that you connected to something. But that front end where the detail isn't enough, there is that almost like, guys, couldn't we have just gone to the part where you brought, like, but it's not like that. It's like they're always willing to work with you. They're always willing to zoom in with you, but it's almost like there's a shorthand. And then if that doesn't get us there, we can figure out.
Then we can
further.
figure out, right. We get the cliff notes, then we try to get the rest of the story. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Again, I know I can speak for Sterling on this as well. We love what we do. We love being able to be a part of your world, your journey, your travels, your thoughts, but you've got to be in it too. You've got to be along for the ride, but you also got to be the ride. So you've got to participate on all these journeys. And I tell people, if you don't like what I say, prove me wrong. Go right ahead. I want you to. I truly want you to. Because if I see that next month is not a good month for you, prove me wrong. You can call me later and go, you were wrong. And I'll go, good. Hey, did you have a better time because you had a good month?
Yeah, and that's accurate because you're like, well, real quick, I'm going to edit this, but I'm going to get a charger to put on the back of my phone because it's getting low. I'll be right
Sure.
back. 2 seconds.
Okay. I'll be right here.
Brained, more masculine leaning client, but she's a mother of 3. This always happens. Like whenever you have somebody because immediately she said, I'm at a fork in the road. And immediately before anything even happened, I said, well, they're telling me you already know the answer. And then she tells me that the big issue she wants to talk about is work. And I'm thinking, I don't see that, but I don't see exactly what it is yet. But I didn't feel like it was that was a fork in the road, that she knew what to do. But we kind of rock with the idea that that's what it is until more comes out. Because she wasn't willing at the time, or maybe she didn't even know that I was touching the real issue. Well, the major issue is that there was a domestic violence issue a year and a half, like there's some issues and she's not been able to recover. And she's basically debating whether she's going to stay or not.
That's a pretty big, yeah.
And so then it makes a million times more sense for them to say, the answer already. And she does. She's not going to stay.
Right.
It's just going to take a minute.
Absolutely. And so she had come to that conclusion. So for her, work was the substance. It was the thing to hold on to that was going to get her to that conclusion.
Well, I told her, I said, the thing I said, you have, the quote was really, I said, of the inner circles of our life, I said, this work thing is like on the 4th ring. I said, so we got to figure out what's 3, 2, and 1. I said, and I sense more than anything, and this is before she told me about that, I said, there's an identity crisis. And I said, so most of us take work and we externalize the identity crisis because the world we live in, it's like, what do you do for work is almost synonymous with who are you and what's your value.
Exactly.
And so then we do that to ourselves where we're like, well, I don't feel right about anything. Let me change my work. And it's like, I wonder sometimes how frequently that's actually what needs to be done. Sometimes it is.
Sometimes it is, but you're right. A lot of times that's exactly what it is. We put so much stake in how people see us through our employment, how we present ourselves through what we do for a living. But you're right. Her biggest problems were not about work.
No, and I do feel, I told her this, I said, I think that you would be very supported by your biological family in this, if this were to go down. But,
wow.
We do the best we can.
We do the best we can, and then we can link on a little longer to that. And it's going to take her a long time. I could tell you intuitively, it's going to take her a long time to actually make that leap.
It's hard. How could, 3 kids, but I told her, I said, I hope that you don't allow this to be a running off in the night.
Yeah.
Because I told her, I'm pretty blunt. I said, I feel you're waiting for that so that you don't have to make that choice.
Well, and that's exactly true. And, that's what gets kind of tricky with what we do, because we also want to embrace, hope and optimism. But we're not going to tell you falsehoods, but we don't want to make you feel like crap by the time you're done with us.
Yeah.
But sometimes the reality and the truth's really going to hurt. And
Yeah.
there's instances where you're not going to like what we have to say. And we can't be all puppy dogs and kitty cats, because you didn't come to us to placate you. You came to us to get what we hear and get what we see. And it is hard sometimes when people are not being really open to that kind of viewing. Let's put it that way, to that kind of viewing.
Well, I think she was really a little bit shocked that even we had gotten to that part. I felt she got a little bit shell-shocked through it. And so at the very end, I had 15 minutes left, and I just knew we're going to change gears and get her amped up about the spiritual side of it, because she opened with saying, I feel like I'm in a spiritual awakening.
I love it.
And so I just knew, I was like, this has already gone too dense, too emotional, and she's kind of shutting down. And like you said, we don't want someone leaving not feeling good. And so
Right.
I kind of played in that world a little bit, explained some of the guide stuff, felt her kind of amp up. And I just told her, I was like, yeah. And I was like, you already know what you need to do. Take your time. Like, give yourself the relief of knowing you've made a decision.
Yes.
And then just take your time.
And that's exactly right. Take your time, see what it is that you need to do to be able to move forward. And I'll tell you, especially with relationships, and you see it, I see it, people can come to us, we can give them very solid advice about what's going on from what we're hearing from our spiritual work, our spiritual team. But we play so many head games with our, within ourselves, for ourselves. And I don't mean Sterling and I in that. I'm not talking about the intuitives. I'm talking about the way you take on the information. I've seen people that were just, if you're going to ask me if your spouse is faithful to you, I may not give you what you're really looking to hear, which is, yes, of course, you're the only love in his life or her life. I may say something that says you've got some issues with your marriage, and you can choose to sit on it the way it is and leave it alone, or you could choose to make a difference. And I'm going to tell you, there's going to be people that'll be, they'll be on the cheerleader side of that. Yes, I'm going to make a difference. Yes, I'm going to make a difference. Then they shut down and they're mad at you because you told them that there was things that needed to be improved. And then all of a sudden now you are no longer the person they trust, because they don't trust themselves.
And they're not willing to act on it. What they already knew they need to do when they came and sat down.
Yes.
And that's okay. We all do that. Like, there's a version of us that just wants what we want, and we want it hard.
Yes. And
But
you've got to trust yourself with the answers. Are you willing to take a deeper look? If you ask, you're going to get something in return. So what are you going to do with that something in return?
I think that's a big thing about understanding what drives a behavior. And there's a big attempt to defang the driver. So, like, more often than not, and I'm hugely guilty of this, but the abandonment issues manifest in people as clinging to people who don't value them.
That's exactly right.
And sometimes to hear that
right
will help somebody, rather than saying, this guy's not good for you.
That's right.
Because they can't hear that. They already know that. Maybe they'll hear, oh, you're not actually that into him. You like him because he treats you like crap.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And I'm going to throw something out there that's not a popular thought, but I'm going to throw it out there. And if this applies to you, I don't know who you are, but you do. I love it. It goes along to, Terry's handful of pet peeves, revealed one at a time, through the history of time, right? One of my biggest pet peeves about cards, for all my lovely friends that do tarot cards and oracle cards, you're great, and I love y'all. But one of my biggest pet peeves, and most of you know, I always say, hey, I jump at the cards and play around and wave at you. Yeah, that's a big one, because I can't play with them without like wanting to go, away and look at them all on my own. But the other pet peeve I have, and it goes right back to this conversation, is I cannot tell you how many times I've heard this. And when I first used to hear it, I would ignore it. And I don't ignore it now. So if you're the person to say this, get ready for a response that you're not going to like.
Oh, no, let's go.
I hear this more than I care to. Well, I use cards because if they don't like the information I'm giving them, it's not my fault. It's what the cards are saying. If the card says their marriage is at fault, then they're not mad at me because I can't help what the cards are telling them.
I didn't know people said that.
Well, believe it
That's
or not,
interesting.
do say that, and I've heard it. It's
Yeah.
not my fault. That's what the cards are saying. Honey, you are the cards. Whoever you are the cards. If you're sitting there making a living doing this, those cards are you. And don't be blaming the deck of cards. You are you, and you are the one implementing the reading. And it is a pet peeve. And I don't say it very much because I sometimes get people upset with me and I've said it before, and that's when I stop. Because
Well, I mean, I'm going to dig into this.
In it.
I'm very curious actually about getting into that topic a little bit. So we have our own energy.
Yes.
And somebody else has theirs. You meet at a table, essentially.
Absolutely.
And because I don't do cards, you didn't let me. So I'm curious about this procedure in spirit because I don't have experience with it. So then essentially I've seen people like do it where you have to somebody else has to hold the cards. Then I hear that some people, no one ever touches my cards but me. So everyone's got a methodology, seems like, man. It's not consistent. And I'm sure just like your connection is different than mine. But so then you can shuffle in a way to where they jump out, or you can just place them down. And the theory of it all is supposed to be that something is guiding the jumpers or somebody guided the way it's shuffled, right? That's the theory. Okay. And so then the idea would then be that somebody had to tell the energy to do that, which would be the reader, or did the energy of the other like that? I don't know the answer. If somebody asked me that, I would have 0% idea because I don't know who is doing that work because it's so different. Because my thought is, my gut would say, in a perfect world, maybe if spirit is hyper invested in this, maybe there'd be some activity in the cards for you. But at the end of the day, your reader should be the one hearing chatter saying, well, that card might mean this, but really I'm sensing this. That's the reading part, right? That's why it's...
No, that's... I understand why that isn't unclear to you because you don't use cards and you don't sit with other readers.
No.
Most readers, and I had a segment of this in my class yesterday or the day before yesterday. When you're doing readings and you're using tools, you've got to do more than what the tools suggest. So if you've got a card that says find peace in your universe, your reading shouldn't be, oh, it's peace, find peace in your universe. Isn't that great? Next card. To me, that doesn't mean a doggone thing. That's a kumbaya moment. Put it in a Hallmark card. Don't put it in my reading,
Oh, man.
I'm not paying $5 for a Hallmark card. Or $35 for, a fair reading. What I got to be careful because, there are 95% of us work with cards. 5% of us don't. And so we're going to tread on some waters here. If you're doing cards, folks, and I love you all, mwah, but I also want to tell you, get real with your cards. Don't just read what your cards say. If you know that represents success, what does that success mean? What are you feeling? What are you sensing? What are you knowing? What happens to your skill sets if you leave your cards at home?
Dang. Or like what you did to me. You said you can play with cards and you give me an empty deck. I was like, man, I'm going to lose my mind today.
What? Yes. What happens to you? What happens to your skill set when your toys are not available?
Well, and so
that's where my challenge is. And I'm not putting anyone down because, boy, I would get in a lot of trouble from a lot of my favorite people, my circle of people. But the bottom line is they're more than just what's written on them or the pretty picture of the sky above. We know the sky's above. You should know the sky's above. What the heck does it mean in your reading? Embellish. I actually saw someone giving a reading with the book of information. And I screw up. It was like, oh, you got this card. Let me get my book out and let's read to you what the book says. Why don't you just let me borrow your deck? I'll take it home with your book.
And I'll get that here. I'm that's a reader, like literal reader, like reading a book. I just realized
I'm not kidding.
Clarify. Well, in that situation, it's like we have there should be. I thought I believe in that there are ways that that tools can be helpful in focusing, perhaps, especially if you haven't trained to do it how you taught me, which is more, I think, we're not going to go there. So
I know.
But it helps. Like, I can see how these tools, pendulums, whatever, they help, right? But what I think, I'm grateful it's selfishly because we both dodged such a hard bullet. Because nowadays everybody knows the cards. So I feel almost like I can just see myself now wanting to jump across the table because someone's like, well, that I thought that card means this. And you're just like, all right, well, never mind. I just am grateful I don't have to deal with that. Because you know what happens.
It does happen. Again, I understand it. I do understand. I'm a firm believer, and this is what I originally thought cards were designed for. I'll tell you, originally, and this is, again, call me stupid. I don't care. Call me opinionated. Call me arrogant. I will talk about that later. But I thought cards were created so an individual could do their own readings. Because when a card becomes so specific, if I'm shuffling and throwing the cards all around and one lands on the ground, wow, that card means my day. I'm more apt to go with that. I'm more apt to go, oh, look at this. Here's a card. What does this say? Well, I'll take that. I'll take that into consideration. And that's what I was teaching on Saturday. Was I did. I said I don't use cards, but I have two decks, a blank deck and a pretty fluffy deck. And I said, I'm gonna draw you all a card. How do you feel about that? They were like, yeah, let's just do that. And I said, but it's not just about what this card says. And we showed, I showed A, B, and C as far as, I could read you the card, but you could read it too. Once you don't have your glasses, and I'm happy to give it to you, tell you what it says. But there's 3 different ways. I'm going to read it. I'm going to tell you what I intuitively hear about what peace is. Or we're just going to pretend it doesn't exist and take it someplace where it probably isn't helpful. Peace. Oh gosh, everyone gets a card of peace, but me, I don't feel peaceful.
Man.
So what I did is I said, there's a responsibility here. So if you take a card, which you all have now, which they did, that you have to find a way to honor that card now. What today is going to make that really make sense. If you drew a card that's a journey card and it says journey, take this opportunity to journey. Well, what does that mean for you? What is it going to mean? Are you going to think about, your trip that you went on last year? Or are you going to plan the trip you're going on this year? Are you going to think of foreign land? Are you going to do something to embellish the process? If you do, then the cards are beautiful. They're lovely. They work for you better than I can. But most cards are simply pulled for people with very little significance. And that's where I get bothered. And there are many readers out there. I love you all. When you're pulling cards, I've heard some of you are amazing. And I've watched you. And I'm like, yeah, because the cards are just something for you to stare at. And when you can look at the cards as something to stare at instead of your client, then you get more bonus points. But if you're using that because you don't have a clue how to be an intuitive, but the cards know, then I don't really want to get myself in trouble, aren't I, today, Sterling?
Well, so for any of the listeners, there are 2 that I remember watching, and again, very authentically gifted. And one of them, she's on YouTube, and she does not take clients. She just takes the views. But one thing I noticed about her and always admired is that she almost really never, that I can tell, and I have vague understandings of the card meanings, she'll get something like maybe say the death card, and then just have this complete experience with spirit. And it has so little to do. It's so, and sometimes I watched it enough to where that same card will have such a different meaning and experience in the story of the reading. And it's so much more about her. She don't even show her face. You have no idea what she looks like. And then there's another one, Consciousness Evolution, same deal. Never see her face. It's just about the readings for people. And I do know, and we both know they're very, very gifted people.
Yeah.
But if you ever want to see what a reading looks like when it's not held to the descriptions of the cards in a more academic aspect, go check out their readings.
I love that. Yes.
And that way, then sometimes maybe if you get a card reading, you can sort of see a difference where it should feel, I know she's incredibly gifted, but it should feel more like that, where someone's saying, it's weird. I know this card's supposed to mean this, but I feel it's this. And here's why I feel it's this. And they're telling me it's this, or she'll be in the middle of the reading. She'll be like, I don't know why, but I just hear this lyric, and she'll say the lyrics out of a song she doesn't know. So it's so obvious.
That's the difference.
She's in it. They're just a tool.
That's exactly it. I love that. I do. I truly love that. I don't care if you use cards, go, you enjoy them. But don't tell me that you can blame it on the cards. And don't tell me it keeps you from looking at your clients. And don't tell me it keeps you out of the possibility of being someone mad at you. You know what? We're all in it to help people. You have a responsibility. Whatever you're hiding behind or from, you still have a responsibility.
Mm-hmm. I'll never forget, and we don't name names, but I'll never forget whenever you taught an individual a lot about the shamanic practices, and very soon after that worked its way into the energy of the readings. And I thought, that's really new energy to integrate, to then be expressing. I think it's interesting.
And you should be just as much mesmerized by what comes out of your mouth as your guest.
That's so accurate.
If you're channeling it, you don't know what's coming out. You don't know what's happening. You don't know what direction. You know that you have a baseline of keep it real, keep it kind, but you don't know what's coming out. And sometimes the reading is just as exciting for the giver as it is the recipient.
When I was younger at this, I remember if somebody kind of didn't validate immediately, I would freak out a little bit. And now I almost, because I just trust, I'm like, I'm about to blow your brain because I know that you are resisting a little bit. I almost feel like an invitation to be better, and that instead of getting scared and freezing.
Right. Exactly. We're all on the same playing field, people. We're all on the same playing field. We all do things differently because we're all kind of engineered a little bit different from each other, right? We're all a little bit different. But just more than anything, just be your authentic self. Really let the authentic self come through. It doesn't matter if you're, wow, exciting good or almost there or lukewarm good. If you're trying and you're working towards something to help others, keep talking to your team. You'll get there. We all have this gift. It's what we do with it. It's what we get from it to give to others that really kind of make it grow within us. So, it doesn't matter. And I've had some pretty washed out readings in the past from people that I just thought, wow, if you would have had any skin in the game, it probably would have been a better feel to it. Mm-hmm. But I call them washed out readings because when I get a reading from someone, and I don't, so if anyone's going, did I give Terri a reading? The answer is no, because I don't get readings locally. But if you did, and if it was washed out, that just meant that you weren't part of it. You just were too ho-hum to figure it out or to get any enthusiasm. Mm-hmm. And I have had those readings where I felt like, don't make shit up, people. I don't want to hear about it.
Unfortunately, I did not. I only ever got, I think, 3 before you. One was great online, and then 2, one of them tried to get me for $2,000 because I had something around me that had been around me since childhood, and the only way that it could be gone was $2,000 later.
14.
And then the other one I think was $800, and she was gonna go and take my energy into a cave that's secret that the dark energy can't find, and only she could meditate to make that go away from me.
Wow!
And thank God I never obviously I didn't, but that's a terrifying feeling. Because you don't know that they're full of crap if you just are kind of, because I was depressed. I needed, there was a reason I was looking. I was in an injured state. And then they said, well, we can make it better for the price of $2,099.
And that just kills me. I had that happen with one of my clients. I rarely do house calls because I'm busy. I do a house call that takes 3 hours of my day for an hour reading.
If that, it's probably more.
I don't make a darn thing. If I'm doing a house call for you, it's because I really, really feel a need to. And I don't even know what that need is or what, but when I'm driven, I'm driven. So I'll do that.
You're called to it.
Call to someone who was trying to get pregnant. And I'd seen her a few times in the past. And so for my regular fee, no road trip, no trip charge, no nothing, I went to her house and I was there an hour there, visiting. And she said, as I was leaving, she said, I got to tell you something. I got to level with you. And I said, okay, level with me. And she said, I just gave someone $1,200 to help me. Was it 12 or 1,000? I can't remember.
No,
it's 12. But that's the first thing that sticks out. At the very least, it was 1,000, but I think it was 12. I just paid someone last month. That's why you didn't hear from me. I was ashamed. I said, what are you talking about? She said, well, I was at some event, and she didn't tell me exactly what it was about. And this woman came up to me and, oh, I want to tell you a few things for free. Is that okay? She said, well, sure, tell me something for free. I like free, and she said, there's something you want, there's something you're longing for. Well, you know what? It could be an ice cream cone. Nobody,
Yeah.
all longing for something in a moment.
Yeah. Oh, I hate that. Yeah.
And I can help you. I have the right crystals that'll help you to draw that to you. Okay. So long story short, after, just one-time payment of $1,200, she gave her about $50 worth of crystals. And she said that she would do a mantra, basically, for her. And then she would check on her in about 2 weeks. And if something didn't stick, well, then for a smaller fee, she could come in and see what the client had done wrong to not get what was supposed to happen. And so, and she said, Terri, I gave it to her. And I'm thinking to myself, I charged a measly $100. I drove across town.
God.
Me 12 times for what you just paid. And I would have even given you some of those crystals, because I would have had enough of them in my own collection that if you said, Terri, can I have a couple? I'd have said, okay.
Oh my God.
And you got bamboozled. And for a moment I was irritated. But then I thought, you know what? It isn't about me. It's not about anybody other than deceit. The truthism here is that there's a lot of people out there that are willing to roll you over and take your wallet, okay? They just don't tell you they're taking your wallet. They tell you to use Venmo or Zelle instead.
And they're saying that your piece of existence is on the line.
Yeah. And they're so willing to give you that five minutes of BS for free because they're going to put you on the hook, line, and sinker for a lot more.
And fear is such a powerful driver.
It is. It's fear. People feed off fear. Had that person walked away after saying you're longing for something and I hope the best for you and I just want you to know that you've got this, and walked away, I would have been clapping in the background. I would have said, that was the best piece of advice. You opened up her eyes. You made her think. She doesn't know exactly what it is that she's longing for, but you gave food for the thought for the day, and you didn't take anything from her.
No.
She didn't ask you for a reading. You just walked up to her. So you see, there's plenty of opportunities to be helpful. But there are so many charlatans out there that do that. I hear it all day, every day.
Well, and also to address the actual thing that, here's a method that would actually be applicable to what that woman was initially wanting. And if you want, let's just use crystals to use what they're saying. But, you want a new job, right? Let's just say that's what you want. You haven't put any foot to the pedal yet, but that's what you want. Or maybe you want clarity about the job. You go and get a nice crystal. You put it somewhere that you see it all the time. And you say, this is the physical embodiment of that desire.
Right.
And until I can find that or achieve that, I desire that this be sort of a totem to an acknowledgement that that's what I'm looking for. And what that can do is our minds are so swirl, symbols and totems, you can externalize that driver. So then it turns into every time you see it, you're reminded, oh yeah, I'm trying to figure out my job thing. And that's the real application of bringing that clarity to you, is externalizing the desire, having a marked reminder, and then you kind of feed it back to yourself every time you see it. So it's not really the crystal. It very much is energy. It very much is the real backbone of manifestation. And that wasn't $1,000.
Nope. Didn't need to be $1,000.
Zelle or Venmo. No.
Yeah, Zelle and Venmo. That's right. And oh my gosh, sometimes when we talk and we expose, and that's what it feels like. Sometimes it is about exposure. There's some common mistakes. There's some common I don't want to call them mistakes, common practices that are less than stellar, that are less than,
less than ideal.
Board.
But that's honestly, if we go back to the reasons why we started this, we cannot at all shy away from the fact that this was a big reason for why we wanted to do this. Yes. It's because if we are a place where we will continue to speak our truth, the truth as we honorably know it, we don't ever shove this on anybody. We don't do a ton of marketing, really. There's an expectation that if this is for you, you'll find it, because we are not going to be someone who is for everybody.
No,
We're going to
no,
challenge notions around this, but we're challenging it because we believe that there is reasons for this information to be, like you said, exposed or spoken about or brought to light, because there are those that are going to take advantage, those that are going to do this dishonorably, do this without kindness, all the reasons that anybody could
right,
do anything in a, like you said, less than stellar light. But
right,
we also sort of have this promise and this integrity towards where we have a significant amount of empathy for those clients that are reaching out, because they are only doing so because of a harmed state, an injured state. That's such a
yes,
high majority for people who seek out clarity of the future. So we do this as never to put down people that we work around or that we know. It's to protect the
no,
people that we're trying to help anyway. And if that bothers somebody, if our desire to protect those people and our desire to allow them to understand sort of the pitfalls, and even if we feel some of the things that we do and say that push other people that are metaphysical to be better at what they do, or to be more honorable, to be closer to, what they might be scared of,
that's what the goal is.
it's all to protect. It's to protect the readers so that they can have a better
Was
experience with what they're spending their time on anyway, to protect the clients so that they are given what they're said they will be given and that they are not manipulated and managed. So
yeah,
that's why we do this. And then we like to nerd out and we love to talk to each other and we love each other. And there's a lot of reasons why we do it. But when we get aggressive about these topics, and I do feel that it's within our
well,
right to, please recognize we do this because we feel very strongly about those that are
we do.
not a flaw, like but the people that that feeling of when you get done with a reading and you know that you really help someone feel better about themselves.
Yes,
It's like that's who we're protecting. So don't be mad at us for trying to protect them. That's what we do.
right. And that's exactly that. That's very well spoken. Thank you for saying it that way. You know,
Well, I love you and I love how we aren't afraid. Sometimes
well,
we'll definitely stop sometimes, or like we've edited a couple times sometimes. We have some restraint. We really do. You shouldn't see what's on the cutting room floor sometimes because we're both opinionated, man.
well, and that's true. And I can throw my tantrum with the best of them. And I have those that can't stand me, and I really do. I know it's hard to believe. I know I'm such a teddy bear, but I do. And you know what? Those that hate me, you know what? Thank you, because what you hate in me is one of the things I love in me.
That's a
So
great use it, and it makes me love it more. No,
makes me work harder to be better. And so, I love it all. I really do. And in more than anything, I really want you to grow, and you and you and you and you and everyone. When you are at your best self, think of what vibrations you put out in the world. Oh
yeah,
my gosh, think of those vibrations. If 5 people are in a great mood and they're sending out joy, 5 more are going to feel it. 10 more are going to feel that. If you're out there, acting, like you just want to take advantage of everybody that comes in your path, you're just sending that vibe out there. You're just creating it, and 5 more after that. So, raise your vibration. We all have an opportunity to raise our vibration
and to be honorable.
and to be honorable. We're not perfect. Good God, I'm not perfect. I mean, heck, I get lost trying to get home sometimes. I'm not perfect.
No,
I mean, you can probably outwin me on any kind of Scrabble game, and outbid me on everything else, and that's fine. Those things are very nonplussed. They don't mean as much to me. I really love you, and I really want you to help you, and that's why I do what I do.
well, and speaking of the help thing, I know that you know this, but Wolf and the Bear, we are sort of extending into the physical world in some way. But starting in March, every other Thursday, I'll be at the Bedford Miracles of Joy, and I'm kind of jumping off on this thing that I'm going to call the Dark Night of the Soul Anonymous. It's just
Love
going to
that.
be a place where people in the physical community can come, and we're just going to sit and we're going to start. I will have a class topic that we're going to talk about, but there will also be a component where I basically say, where's the heart? What you're here because something's wrong, something's hurting. That's why we're showing
Right.
up together, right?
And
And
this is
let's talk about
Thursdays.
it.
Do you do it on Thursdays?
Uh-huh.
Are
Or
they?
I think, let me make sure.
I hope they're not the same as others.
What'd you
Well,
say?
that'll be fun. If you're probably teaching there and I'm teaching at the other center at the same time.
Well, no, I think it's on Wednesday.
A Wednesday,
Let me
not Thursdays. Good.
Well, let me double check, but also it might be the opposite Thursday of you. We'll see. Let me look.
And you know what? She's amazing. And if you have a choice between seeing Sterling or seeing me, you better know which one
It's
to go to.
Wednesday. I'm sorry,
I
yeah.
mean,
The first one's gonna be Wednesday the 12th and then Wednesday the 26th.
oh, I love it. See, you get to go to
Dang,
her
or maybe I did that
classes.
wrong. Now that we say this, I gotta check that. ADD. I'll check it.
We know she's teaching on Wednesdays. It's on the
Yeah.
schedule. She's got it under the Wolf and the Bear, and she's got it on the company's website where she's
Yeah.
going to be. So don't be afraid. Don't be shy. I'm excited. I'm glad you're doing that. I think that's amazing. I'm going to continue. I'm going to resume my Thursday guide work with channeling
Yeah.
in Louisville.
Perfect.
I am on holiday, temporary holding my channeling classes in Richardson, trying to kind of promote something a little different for a while. And then maybe in May, I'll revisit the channeling in Richardson. But, all our data is, you can find us. Sterling's got us well set up. So you
Oh,
can
we are
find
gonna do some good work.
Wow, that's our plan. That's our job. One thing, have we had any comments? Anything anyone's needed to ask yet?
Not online, but I keep getting, I mean, we're people are coming to see us
I love it. They
as
are.
a
We're
result
getting
of that.
a lot of feedback. We're getting a lot of feedback. I'm eternally grateful to Sterling. She works very, very hard. She showed me, took her about 3 months. She showed me how to turn my microphone on and how to turn it off. I was excited about that. She then showed me that there was actually a video camera already installed on my computer. That was a real cool thing to see pop up. So
Oh,
I'm learning
goodness.
from her. And I'm happy to be a part of her vision. And I'm happy to say that I hope as we progress, this vision is obviously both of ours. And we
Yeah.
love her, but she is the instigator. She's the one that keeps me on task.
Well, we do great work and we're going to keep doing it. And I'm so excited. And I love channeling class with Terri on Thursdays, emotional support group Wednesdays.
And there you go. That's right. See, you can go and get yourself all jazzed up on Wednesday. Then you can come meet your guides on Thursdays. We channel to them. Okay.
I love it. I love it.
I love it. I love you. I love our listeners. I love our viewers. Keep growing and knowing people. That's what you do.
And don't be afraid. Comment, reach out. Let us know what you want to hear us talk about.
Exactly. Just leave us questions. If you have questions that we can bring to the next session, we're happy to try to answer you. I feel like there's a lot of people that have a question. They're just too afraid to put it out there. We promise we won't use your name or your address or your telephone number, and certainly Social Security number. So you're safe with us.
Well, look at that. I love you so much. We're going to have a really good week.
I love you too. And we're going to have fun. This next week is going to be a glorious week because we are going to make it that way in spite of the fact we have 3 days of rain coming up.
We're going to get through it.
Yes.
Oh.
Okay. Those umbrellas and enjoy.
Well, I will see you next week and we'll be back on it. And I love you so much.
Love you so much. Bye-bye. Take care, friends.